Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for the Tech Guy is provided by Cachefly. CACHEFLY.com. Hi, this is Leo Laporte, and this is my Tech Guy video edition, an edited-down edition of the two shows we did on Saturday, August 21st and Sunday, August 22nd, 2010, episodes 693 and 694. Enjoy. Well, a good day to you. How are you today? Leo Laporte here, the Tech Guy, and it's time to talk about technology, computers, the internet, cell phones, camcorders, MP3 players, home theater, all of the stuff, all the gizmos and gadgets that make our life so complete, so full, so rich, so frustrating. The phone number is 8888 Ask Leo. If you'd like to join and ask a question or make a comment or make a suggestion, that's 1-888-827-5536, toll-free from anywhere in the U.S. And if you're outside the U.S., that 888 number is toll-free to you, too. If you Skype out, you can just call. And then just, Skype will do it for free. So there's so much to talk about this week. I guess, one of the stories, and I guess I'll talk about this later today, is the fact that Intel spent $7.68 billion, with a B, billion dollars, to buy McAfee, one of the big antivirus companies. And you might wonder, in fact, I thought when Microsoft came out with the Microsoft Security Essentials, essentially started giving away an antivirus for free, I thought, boy, this is going to be tough for the virus boys. They're going to, not the bad guys, but the good guys. How are they going to make a business out of something Microsoft gives people for free? I guess I was wrong. McAfee, one of the things they do that makes them, they make $2 billion a year in revenue, $2 billion a year. So it makes sense to pay, 3 times earnings for Intel, I guess, because, they'll then pay for themselves in a few years, right? But one of the things that McAfee does that I think is going to start going away, is they make these deals with companies like Dell and Hewlett-Packard and everybody else to put it on the Windows machine when you buy it. You get that, that trial. And then you get the automatic resubscribe if you give them your credit card number. So, in a way, I think that a lot of that $2 billion comes from people who just, forgot. And it just kind of automatically renews every year. So that's one. And, of course, if you put it on the computer, I think the presumption is, and quite reasonably by, normal people who don't listen to this show, for instance, that, well, that must be the antivirus, the with a capital T, like I'm the tech guy, that must be the antivirus. It came with my machine. I'll just keep renewing it. It's not as you probably know, it's not my favorite antivirus for a number of reasons. It's not bad. I mean, it's at least it's better than nothing. I guess you could make that case. It's not the first one I would have bought had I been Intel. I did say I wasn't going to talk about this, didn't I? Well, I'll talk about why I think Intel did this a little later on today. The other big story, and maybe it's a bigger story, I'd like to get your opinion on this, is Facebook's Places feature. I often wonder, I do this, and I wonder why people do this. I don't know. I don't even know why I do it. Do you check in when you get somewhere? You say, "Oh, I'm here, so I'm gonna announce to the world that I'm here." Do you do that? Do you do it with there's Foursquare, right? There's Gowalla. There's My Town. So when you arrive at a spot, do you run over to Foursquare and you say, "I'm here, I check in," and then, they're smart. They make it a little bit of a competition when you check in, because the person who checks into the place most, here, I'm just going to check into my studio right now, becomes the mayor of that place. So let me just check in. I should be the mayor, right? I am, after all. This is my studio, right? Let me just see who's the mayor. Wait a minute. Ken Shepardson is the mayor of TWiT Cottage? That's not right. So Now, you could see now, I'm going to make sure I check in from now on. And then some businesses, if you check in, some business will say, oh, you're the mayor. Like Starbucks for a while was giving you $1 off a Frappuccino. That's it, $1. Give me a free Frappuccino. Come on. But it makes sense if you're a bar or a restaurant and somebody's the mayor because they've checked in so much and they get something like a free entree, there's going to be a competition to go there. And the thing about Foursquare, I'll use Foursquare as an example, you have to be pretty close to the place to check in. You can't just be, next door. Well, you kind of can. Actually, you could cheat a little bit. So Foursquare is the big player right now in this. And I guess the justification, there's a couple of them. I think originally these all started because it was San Francisco hipsters who wanted to let their other hipster friends know that they were at a bar or a coffee shop or a nightclub and, hey, come on, man, let's party. So they checked in. The original version of Foursquare was another child's game called Dodgeball. And that really was, it was really about running into people or going where some of your friends were and hanging out with them. And it, had a little bit of appeal to normal people who didn't, nightclub every night. But then people started adding their place of work, their favorite restaurant, coffee shop, gym, everywhere they went. And it became suddenly a place to check in, whether you expected to meet people or not. Originally, it was only in big cities. Then it turned out you could do it pretty much anywhere. And now Foursquare is the big player in this with millions upon millions of users. And I'm one of them. And the weird thing is over 12,000 people follow my check-ins. It's stalker bait, isn't it? Fortunately, all my friends are nice. I don't worry about that so much. Gowalla came along and they had a similar idea, but they gave you a kind of cutesy little icons and badges, and you could pick up and leave virtual goods at the places you checked in. Now there's Scavenger without any vowels. Scavenger is another, and mostly you use these on your cell phone, by the way, your iPhone or your Android phone. Scavenger is another one that lets you, when you get to a place, check in, and then it gives you tasks. If another Scavenger user that you know is there, you can bump phones and do a joint check-in. That's clever. Or take a picture, or there's all sorts of little, it's like a scavenger hunt. So they're making these games. You may wonder, well, why would anybody do this? And I guess it's kind of fun. But I tell you what, I don't wonder, why these companies are springing up everywhere. Because it's so valuable. People realize that Twitter has, and Facebook have a huge database of people's interests, likes, and that's valuable to sell to advertisers. It's valuable to aggregate that information. Foursquare came along saying, well, we can aggregate where people go. And businesses can offer coupons. Competitors across the street can say, hey, I see you're at the Pizza Hut. Wouldn't you like to come on over to Round Table? We'll give you a free pizza. That location information could be really valuable, couldn't it? That's why I understand why these companies exist. I'm still a little puzzled as to why I and others, so many others, use these services. It's a little weird. Well, the big player the other shoe just dropped this week. Facebook announced its Places feature. I just read that the #1 application by far on the iPhone, the thing people spend most of their iPhone time doing is Facebook. So much so that they spend more time in the Facebook application than all other applications combined. They live in Facebook. So it makes sense if you're an iPhone user, you've got this new, and by the way, yes, I quit Facebook. I loathe Facebook. For so many reasons, the privacy issues, the fact that they seem to want to take over the internet. But I had to create an account so I could just see what this Places thing does. The other reason I have the account is to see what the privacy settings were. And sure, as always, Facebook changed privacy settings as soon as they added Places. You may not have Places yet. They're rolling it out slowly to people, only on the iPhone app, not on the web page. But it's very much like Foursquare. I just pressed my Places, on the iPhone Facebook app. These are the nearby places. There's the TWiT cottage where we do the show. It shows up on a Google map. Other people who have checked in. I can tag people who are with me if they're my Facebook friends. I can add what I'm doing. Let's say the Tech Guy Show. Actually, I said the Tech Gut Show, but that's probably close enough. And then check in. And now that gets added to my Facebook stream. People can see that I'm here. Other people here can see me. This can tie into Foursquare, and a news site, which I really like, called Food Spotting. You could use this to you're at a restaurant and you have a dish that's just fantastic. Take a picture of it, post it on places. It'll go to the Food Spotting website. I'm sure others will play along. Boy, when Facebook moves in on this, you got to figure this is huge. But isn't it just a case of Facebook getting even more information about who I am, what I do, what I like? Facebook now has collected just about everything there can be to know about somebody. They even know now exactly where I am. They demonstrated at their F8 conference a couple of months ago an RFID tag that you could carry around with you in your wallet that would just check you in automatically. Hey, you know, we know you like this check-in thing, but isn't it trouble every time you get somewhere just to tell people you're there? Why don't we do it for you? We'll just follow you around everywhere and announce where you are. Google already does that with something called Latitude. If you have a Google phone and you've turned on Latitude, Latitude's tracking you everywhere you go. Google knows where you are too. Not because they want to spy on you, not because they're looking over your shoulder, but just because they can sell that information. That information is incredibly valuable to advertisers and companies who want to give you coupons, things like that. Is this something you want to do? Did Facebook add this because people were demanding it? Because people love it? Facebook says, oh, we just want to help people connect. We just like helping people connect. Is that why they did it? Would you use this feature? Have you used it? The good news, incidentally, and I praise Facebook for this, it's off by default. You have to manually, on your Facebook page or on your iPhone, turn it on. Have you? Will you? Would you? 8888 Ask Leo, that's my phone number. I'd love to talk about that. Anything's going on with you in the computer, the internet, the cell phone, the home theater area, any of that stuff. 8888 Ask Leo, 1-888-827-5536. I am Leo Laporte, the tech guy. 8888 Ask Leo. Oh, am I getting heat from my friends in the chat room saying, Leo, you rejoined Facebook? Well, yes and no. I did. Yeah, I did. I created a Facebook account just because I need to see what these settings are and what this default stuff is. I promise I won't use it. And don't friend me there as if, you know, you're going to get some information or I'm going to participate or anything. It's not, I'm not going to post pictures there. But I want to try these features. The only way you can try these places feature is by having a Facebook account, really. To see what it looks like, see what the experience is, see who's using it and how they're using it. You know, what's interesting to me is that there seems to be some debate. I said this was opt-in. This is a big issue, by the way. Opt-in means that it is not turned on unless you specifically say turn places on. Now, that was my experience, but it's not apparently the universal experience. A number of our chat room folks say, no, when I opened up my iPhone app and saw places, I was already opted in. Are you already opted in? Now, I wonder if, one of the reasons I created a Virgin Facebook account is to see what the default privacy settings were at any given time and then see how they changed over time. I didn't touch the privacy settings. I'm wondering if you have customized privacy settings, if that might affect how places, whether it opts you in or not. I guess, look, if some of you were automatically opted in, and we have people in the chat room, and Brendan's here from the UK, and he says he was opted in automatically. So that's, boy, if you're using the Facebook iPhone application, you might want to check your settings. You have to check in when you get somewhere. So in a way, it's opt-in, because if you don't check in, nobody knows where you are. Yet. It's fun when you're traveling, though, isn't it, Brendan? Because you check in as you travel around, and your people back home can see where you are, and you could put a picture on there. And he says it's expensive. Yeah, because you're overseas. That's right. International data rates. Look, I see the appeal of it. I really do. My fear is just twofold. One is I'm not sure I trust Facebook with what they do with our information. And secondly, and maybe even more importantly, Facebook seems to be devouring the internet. There was an article in Wired magazine this week that says the web is dead. People no longer go to the web on their browser, click around, link to link. I think this is specious, but they say that. They use apps. They use Facebook. They say, in fact, Facebook's one of the reasons the web is dying. People are using Facebook. But To me, first of all, the graph that they used was bogus. It was they fiddled with the statistics to show proportionate growth versus actual growth, things like that. But more to the point, if you use Facebook, aren't you using the web really? And I mean, you're using the internet. I'm not sure there's much of a distinction. You're using the web. You're using a web page. And if you're using it on a mobile device, well, I guess you're not using the web. Maybe that's what they're saying, and I guess that's true to some degree, that the rise of mobile computing, whether it's iPhone, Android, or iPad, means that people are using browsers on computers less and less. I'd agree with that. They use apps more and more, but they're still using the web. Aren't they? I hope so. And I would hate to see Facebook replace the open internet. That's the thing that most concerns me. There was a scam going around this week with the dislike button. Did you see that? You know, Facebook's putting the like button on everywhere. And it's a very valuable button to put on a web page if you have a blog. I won't use it because, again, it just channels people back into that Facebook universe. But if you use it, it's very powerful. If you have a website, you have a Facebook page, you put that like button on your website. Every time somebody who's a Facebook member comes and visits it and clicks the like button, it adds a link to your page to their wall, to their stream. So they're publicizing your page on their Facebook page. And that turns out to be very valuable for driving traffic. Really, really valuable. But ever since the like button started spreading, and now it's everywhere, it's hard to go to a page that doesn't have the like button. People have said, well, wait a minute, I don't like it, I dislike it, I need a dislike button. So this week, a scammer took advantage of that demand. You may have seen this on your Facebook. A friend says, hey, I got a dislike button, and it's a link to a page with a dislike button. But it's not really a dislike button, and by installing it, you're opening up yourself to all sorts of issues. It is currently doesn't put any malware on your system as far as I know, but there's nothing to stop it from doing so. It's not a real dislike button. As much as we'd like one, Facebook hasn't done that yet. They should. Let's get to the phones. Dennis is in Santa Monica, California. Hi, Dennis. You're first. Leo Laporte, the tech. Whoops, that's not Dennis. This is Dennis. Hi, Dennis.
Hey, Leo. I'm surprised that I'm first.
Well, you deserve it, sir. You earned it. You called first.
Well, I feel lucky, and I have a geeky question today.
Okay.
I'm working on my backup plan.
Good. That's not geeky. That's serious stuff. That's important.
Well, you know, geeks are serious stuff these days. You know, it's just your best friend ought to be a geek.
Well, you at least everybody ought to have a backup plan. So I like hearing people do that.
Anyway, of course, listening to your show made me think about backup plans. Well, I'm using two ThinkPad laptops because I love the IBM Lenovo keyboard.
Yeah, those are great. Those are great laptops.
Yeah, and part of the plan is one laptop is backup for the other. So if something goes wrong with the hardware or something, it has to go in the shop. I have the other laptop to fall back to.
Oh, it says redundancy. Now, hang on, because this is a great idea for backup, but there's some drawbacks to it, too. Hang on, Dennis. We'll get you right after the break. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. This is kind of, you know, as I think about it, kind of an old-fashioned type of show. Nowadays on talk radio, you hear, a lot of controversy and yelling and screaming, and this is I don't think I yell too much or scream too much. This is a show where people call in and talk about technology and ask for help. It's kind of unusual, but I'm very grateful to the 124 stations and XM 158 that carry this show. I think it just shows there's interest, there's a need. We're all using technology. It's not just for geeks anymore. So I'm glad to help you out. I've been doing this since 1992. It'll be 20 years in a couple of years. Actually, I should find out the exact date. It might be 1991. I could celebrate my 20th next year. So we were talking to Dennis in Santa Monica. He wanted to talk about his backup strategy. Two laptops, two Lenovo laptops. Are they exact duplicates?
Good question. They're not. One is an X40. The other is a T43.
Okay.
But they both use IBM Rescue and Recovery.
Right.
Which I think is pretty good. And my plan is my first part of my plan is to use 2 external hard drives, which are also not exactly the same. And I'm thinking, well, for example, one of them is called a Maxtor OneTouch 4 Mini, which includes some backup software that's called Maxtor Safety Drill. And I'm not sure how good that compares with Rescue and Recovery. Maybe Rescue and Recovery is better. And, of course, I also have the choice of simply dragging and dropping files manually to the hard drive.
That's what I would say. If you're doing a backup to an external drive, I don't like using the backup software. The backup software is easy in one respect because it'll make a backup and then it'll incremental backups on top of it. And it pays attention to what you backed up and so forth. The problem is in almost all cases you get a blob that is the backup that you can't really look at. You have to use special software to browse through it. You don't know that you've got an exact duplicate of what you think you've got. I like a backup where you can look at it and say, oh, there's all my folders, spot check files, say this is a duplicate. So to me, the best kind of a backup is essentially a mirror of the data that you want so that it looks the same on both computers and it looks the same on both hard drives. So I wouldn't use special software. I would just use synchronization software. And there's a lot of different synchronization software out there. Microsoft offers one for free, SyncToy. It's pretty good. The only problem with SyncToy is you have to manually configure it with the Task Manager for scheduling. There's other programs like Second Copy from Centered Systems that do this automatically. And what they do is they just make sure that the hard drive internal to the laptop and the external hard drive are the same. Now, you don't want 100% the same. You don't want your Windows, you don't need your apps, but you want the data directories, your documents directory, your pictures directory, your music directory. You want them to be duplicated. Usually, I think it's enough just to duplicate the documents and settings folder. That gets all the accounts and all the data in all the accounts. So that's what I would recommend. I wouldn't use the other software just because that way you know what you got. And should a failure happen, you can switch over to the duplicate immediately. You don't need software to restore it.
Well, I'm thinking actually of a combination solution because I like dragging and dropping my personal files because, like you say, I want to look at them. But I was thinking of using Rescue and Recovery just for the basic image.
That's a good idea.
But I'm wondering if it'll do this, if I can back up both laptops to both hard drives. And in that sense...
Yeah, you can. You can have... So imaging, what imaging does is it copies the entire drive in such a way that you can restore it 100% the way it was. The drawback to imaging is it's a pain because you're backing up everything, so it's not good for day-to-day backup. What you want to do is make an image every time you make a substantial change to the drive, upgrade the operating system significantly or add a bunch of new applications so that you have an image of the drive in a known good state where everything is the way you want it. Usually I do an image a minute. I do the first install. Then I install all my apps, update all my drivers, get it kind of just the way I want it without any data, and do a second image. And then if I should change the system significantly, I'll make new images after that. But once you've got those first 2 images, then the data backup becomes more important. Now, you could use the IBM software. There's very good imaging software. Drive Image XL is a good one for free. There's a lot of good ones for free. EaseUS, EASEUS.com has an imaging program. What I look for, and I don't know if the IBM does this. I don't think it does. What I look for is an image that you can boot from. Wouldn't it be nice to image your internal drive to that external drive in such a way that if the internal drive died, you could reboot the machine, say boot from the USB drive, and you'd be back in operation?
Wow. Yeah, I think the Maxtor OneTouch 4 Mini has a boot CD that's included if I wanted to use that.
Yeah.
But actually, what I'm wondering, will I confuse Rescue and Recovery if... Will it know which machine I'm needing to restore if it comes to that?
That I don't know. I've not used Rescue and Recovery. I would have to assume that it would have a way of backing up 2 machines to one hard drive, but that's not always the case. But usually it names the image, and you just restore the proper image. Right?
Oh, I see. So I would just have to go in and figure out which
was which. Yeah. Most of the software that I recommend will allow you to, even Norton Ghost, which is a primitive, but the original image backup program will let you say, this is named Lenovo 1 2010, August 21st. That's how I usually do it. I name it by the date and machine. And that would tell you when you wanted to go back to restoring things exactly where you were. I think that's probably the I don't know. And anybody who does know in the chat room, let me know if the IBM solution will do that. If not, then, get the Ease US program or Drive Image XL. Those will all do that. Any good imaging program will do that. So in short, I'm sorry, Drive Image XML. In short, the backup is not a one-time, one-file thing. I think it's a very good idea once you install your system and get it just the way you like it, and before there's any infections or anything bad could possibly have happened to it, you make an image there so that makes it very easy to reinstall the system, right? You go just from the image file, and that takes 10 minutes. After that, you do need to back up, and you need to back up twice. You need to back up locally to an external drive. That's great. That's so you have a quick access to your data. And then it's very important that you do an off-site backup. That means that if something really bad happens, maybe both laptops explode and the external drive catches fire and there's a flood and a tornado, or if something really horrible happens, that all your eggs are not in that one basket, that you have an off-site backup that you can go to. My friend Steve Gibson he backs up to DVDs, which he mails to his mom in Northern California. And then mom just puts them in the closet, never really has to think about it. Steve has yet to have used them, but should something really horrible happen, should Southern California fall into the sea, he'd have somewhere else a copy of all his data. That's when you really care about your data. And nowadays, we got data that's really valuable. We do care about our data. We're putting everything on our computers. Nick in Colton. Is it Colton, California, Nick?
Yes, it is. Colton, California.
Welcome to the show. Leo Laporte, the tech guy.
Leo, while I've been on hold, I actually fixed it after a week of fighting with it, but I wanted to make my call.
Sometimes the computer knows. They go, oh, no, he's called the tech guy. Quick, fix it. What was wrong, Nick?
I can't figure out. The only difference that I made, and I mean, I've been trying so hard since I built a new computer, which I do every like 3 years.
Good, fun.
The only difference I made was I downloaded it using Windows Explorer instead of Firefox.
Oh, that could be. Maybe the file was there. You're talking about installing iTunes on Windows, which is for some reason incredibly difficult. It's not like Apple doesn't want it to work because, of course, most people who use iPods are using Windows. Far more iPod users are Windows users. So they want it to work, but they just seem to have difficulty getting it to work. What I always tell people is try installing QuickTime first, then installing iTunes, because sometimes it's the QuickTime component that can cause problems. But I'm glad so you don't know what happened. You downloaded it with Internet Explorer, and now it's working.
Yeah, I mean, I was so desperate last night. I mean, I actually blanked out the hard drive and reinstalled Windows again, just to see if that would help.
I get a lot of calls from people who have trouble with iTunes on Windows, and I just don't know. There maybe are a number of issues. That's one I never thought of. Use IE to download it? Okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought of that. Well, I'm glad you called. I'm glad you solved the problem while you were on hold. That's why we keep you on hold so long. You know that, right?
Yes. Thank you for taking me.
Thanks, Nick. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. That's me. I don't know why I say the. I guess there are other tech guys. I'm the tech guy. Since 1991, I've been the tech guy. 8888 Ask Leo. That's the phone number if you want to reach me and talk. Doesn't have to be a question, comment, suggestion, correction. We're talking a little bit about these Android phones. It's certainly an interesting topic. Cell phones are rapidly becoming the best-selling, the biggest form of computing out there, easily eclipsing desktop PCs. In fact, Google announced a couple of weeks ago that 200,000 Android phones were activated every day. Every day? Holy cow, it's like 6 million a month. Yeah, I think that's coming just for Android, coming close to PC sales. You include iPhone and BlackBerry in that, it's easily exceeding PC sales. So this is the platform, the growth platform. And in some ways, it's funny because if you've been around for the PC revolution, you're seeing some echoes of it in this iPhone versus Android battle. Just as Apple in 1977 when they came out with the Apple II, but then again in 1984 when they came out with the Macintosh, led the way in personal computing. The first personal computers to be mass-produced and mass-sold, the first graphic user interface, the first GUI, Windows and menu-based computers in 1984 with the Macintosh. Microsoft played catch-up. IBM PC came out after the Apple II was out for about 7 years in 1984. I'm sorry, 81, I should say, 1981, and quickly caught up. Apple did the Mac in 1984. By 1991 or 92, with Windows 3.0, Microsoft, I think you could argue, had caught up with the graphical user interface and was selling far more than Apple. Fast forward to 2007, Apple enters a world where BlackBerries and Nokia phones are dominant. Windows Mobile, perhaps, in business. And they did it all differently. They had a touch screen. They didn't have a lot of buttons. There was no keyboard. They established with the iPhone a completely new form of computing. And it took quite a while before competitive phones emerged. But once Google's Android operating system kind of hit version 2.0, and now with 2.2, the current version, they really started gaining ground. And it's very similar to the PC Mac world, where only Apple made Macintosh computers for the most part. Only Apple. But many, many companies made PCs, each of them customizing Windows in some form or fashion. And it's the same way. Only Apple makes iPhones. But if you want an Android phone, there are at least 20 different manufacturers and different style handsets, and each has their own customizations, pro and con. And I think what you're going to see, it's just about to happen, Apple's dominated the app space. 250,000 iPhone applications out there. It's easily the biggest app store. But developers are always very aware of who has, who can make the most money for them, who has the most sales. And as Android rapidly eclipses iPhone, which it has done, developers will follow. By the end of this year, I imagine Android will have caught up in the number of apps, and by this time next year, it won't be any question. Doesn't make Apple unhappy. Apple's used to that position. Macintosh has always been a small slice of the overall computer sales, but Apple and Apple fans have always said, yes, but it's better. It's the BMW. It's the Mercedes of computers. We pay a premium, but we get more. And I think iPhone users will say the same thing. It's the premium priced, the small handset that people who really know what they're doing, the connoisseurs, love. And the rest of the world goes ahead and uses Android, and that's fine with us. At least that's what they're going to tell us. They may not feel quite that way when they're home by themselves. Interesting thing is Google doesn't really make money on Android sales. They don't charge for but they make money, I guess, in the sense that as you use Android phones, you use more Google services, you see more Google ads. So in the long run, it's good for Google, certainly. But they don't make money in the way that Microsoft made money off DOS and Windows sales. They don't make money in the way Apple makes money off the sales of the handsets. Google really is giving away Android. Very interesting. Very interesting. It's a changing ecosystem. And it oddly enough, paralleling in many ways what happened to desktop PCs. 8888 Ask Leo, that's the phone number. Back to the phones we go. Valencia, Atlanta, Georgia. Hi, Valencia. Leo Laporte, the tech guy.
How are you?
Great. Thanks for calling.
Thanks for taking my call. This is the first time I've ever called in, but I've been a fan of the show off and on for quite a while and remembered screensavers. So I've been a fan for a while.
Wow, that's great. Well, it's so nice to talk to you, Valencia.
I bought an iPhone 4 2 weeks ago, and when I got it, I forgot that on one of your earlier shows, you said that when you take the phone away from your face, it doesn't light up like the 3G.
Well, it's supposed to. It's supposed to. This is called the proximity sensor. So all iPhones have a little sensor in it that senses not position but darkness. So the idea is when you're on a phone call, you want to have the screen turn off because you don't want to accidentally with your cheek press the tones or the mute button.
That's been happening to me too. It's like
yeah, it drives me crazy. And Apple's admitted there's something wrong with the proximity sensor. They seem to think it's software. So Valencia, they say that they're going to fix this.
They need to upgrade like real quick.
I know, it's annoying.
It really is, because I called a friend of mine. I was like, now it's like I have to be careful on how I hold the phone. Not necessarily hold the phone, because I don't have any issues as far as like antenna.
Oh, well, you're lucky on that. That's good.
Yeah, I've never had issues on that. I don't even have a bumper. I use this leather case that I found that I could use for it, and I don't have any issues with that. But yeah, my issue is like moving it away so I could like hit 9 or 5 if I have to dial an actual number, and that putting people on hold by mistake.
Well, that happened to me a lot. I was muting myself. In fact, it happened to me the other day. I was using the iPhone. I can't remember why, but because usually I use an Android phone now. But I was using the iPhone. I do, of course, have an iPhone 4. And the other person stopped talking, and I couldn't figure out. And I said, hello, hello. It was like, did I lose you? And then I looked, and I had muted them with my cheekbone. Or other times, it's really frustrating.
It really is, and I'm almost scared. I'm like, I like the phone. I love the phone. I've dropped it at least once, and it ain't cracked yet. So
thank goodness. I would say that Apple will fix this. They know it's a problem. If it really starts to become a big problem for you, you could I would take it to the Apple Store and demonstrate it. And I have heard of them just simply swapping it out. It may be
a bad batch.
There may be something wrong with it, and in most cases, they will just say, "Oh, yeah." So I think you can get, if it's really driving you crazy, bring it back and have them replace it. It's still under warranty.
Okay. See, that's all I want, and it's it's been a pleasure to speak to you.
Oh, it's been a great pleasure to talk to you, Valencia. I really am glad to have you listening. I just did it, by the way. I just made a call with my iPhone. And those of you who are watching at home, we do a live video stream at live.twit.tv. Saw it worked. It blanked out when I put it up to my face, and then it came back on when I took it away. Somebody's saying in the chat room, and this may be the case, that the latest update, they did, Apple just recently pushed a, 4.02 update to fix the flaw that allowed people to jailbreak their iPhone right from the web browser. They fixed that, and some say that fixed, in that they secretly pushed out a fix to the proximity sensor. So do make sure, this is the case always anyway, when there's an update, and how you find out if there's an update. You plug your phone in, you run iTunes, and you say, if it doesn't automatically pop up and say, yeah, there's an update, press that check for update button to see. And you will be wanting to run the latest version, 4.0.2 on your iPhone, if nothing else for that security flaw. Now, if you've jailbroken your iPhone, you can't. If you've jailbroken it, however, you go to the Cydia store, and there's a fix for that PDF flaw that allowed the jailbreak. This, by the way, is why Intel spent so much money for McAfee, $7.68 billion for the antivirus company. It wasn't the Windows antivirus they were interested in. They realized, as we all are starting to fear, that the next battleground for hackers and spyware and adware and malware is the portable phone. And Intel wants to be in position for that. I completely believe that's the point of it, that they say, and by the way, McAfee does have a cell phone antivirus. I don't recommend them yet. On Android, I use something called Lookout. On the iPhone, you're kind of you're trusting Apple to find viruses before they enter the store. That is the risk of jailbreaking, is that you don't know what you're getting in the Cydia store. But if you're buying, you're getting apps from Apple, you've at least got some protection there. I have a feeling, though, that there's going to be a real battleground between hackers and users, and it's going to be the cell phone. And that's what Intel thinks. Leo Laporte, the Tech Guy 8888. Ask Leo. That's the phone number. Got a lot of volunteers in the chat room who said, I'll help him root his phone. It's a little confusing. In the iPhone world, the phrase jailbreak is used. That is basically it's taking the phone and making it possible to install software from anywhere. It gives you control of the phone. On the Android side, they call it rooting it, because what it gives you is access to the root or super user, the admin user. And once you've rooted the phone or jailbroken a phone, there's a lot more you can do with it. You can do things that the phone manufacturer or the phone company, the wireless company, won't let you do. And that's why people do it. Verizon, for instance, on the Droid won't let you tether unless you pay them money. You root it, you can tether. I'll leave it to you. As far as the technical aspects of it, and that's what I'll comment on. I mean, it's easily done and it's protected. The Librarian of Congress, as I said, ruled just a month ago that the Digital Millennium Copyright Act has an exemption that will allow you to take a phone that you own and modify it in any way you choose, including jailbreaking or rooting it. It's legal. So all the company can do is say it voids your warranty. Now, there's an ethical consideration here, too, though, because you'll now be using your phone in a way that Verizon didn't intend for you to do it. They normally would charge you, and some would say that's stealing. You're using a service for free that Verizon wants to charge you for. That's stealing. So I'll leave that to you. You do pay for your 3G access, but the way you pay for it is I'm going to use it on the phone only. One of our chatters said, go to androidcommunity.com and we will help him. And that's really what's happened here, is that there's a very active community of Android users who do, and this is true in the iPhone too, with Cyanogen and, actually Cyanogen's Android, with Soric and the gang. They very quickly, when a new version of the iPhone or a new version of Android comes out, they very quickly figure out how to root it, how to jailbreak it, how to make it so you can do anything you want. Ethically, my position is you own the phone. You should be able to do anything you want with it. However, you shouldn't steal services that are normally paid. That goes too far. That's crossing the line for me. Same with jailbreaking, say, a PlayStation 3 or an Xbox 360. You ought to be able to modify your Xbox 360, but you shouldn't, even though you can, perhaps, you shouldn't use it to copy games now. You should pay for the stuff you use. That's all. They said that's just a moral and ethical rule. And I think what happens is because people feel like, well, technically I can't because Verizon put something in there that prevents me from doing it. Once I've jailbroken it, once I've rooted it, and now there's no technical limitation, well, that means I can do anything I want. That's not the case. You can do anything, at least in my opinion. You can do anything you want, but you still have, there are technical limits and constraints, and there are ethical and moral limits and constraints. Just because you can surpass the technical constraints doesn't mean you no longer have a moral or ethical responsibility. So I leave that to you. That's for you to judge. I do think rooting your phone, there's good reasons to do it. I'll give you a very good example. All of these companies, Sprint, Verizon, even T-Mobile and AT&T, load up your phone with stuff that you don't want. It's the equivalent of the bloatware that has been coming on Windows PCs for years. I got the Sprint Evo. It has a NASCAR application, an NFL application. My Verizon phone has some really annoying caller ID thing that is free for 30 days, and then it pops up every once in a while saying, hey, your free trials run out. Do you want to pay for it? And I can't get rid of it. Well, that's just begging me to root the phone and take it off. That's, I don't think, morally or ethically wrong at all. This is my phone. I don't want to see this silly pop-up. I don't need this software. It's taking up space on my phone. I don't want it. I think that's what the Librarian of Congress was talking about when he said it's okay to do it. Richard in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. You're next. Leo Laporte, the tech guy.
How's it going, Leo?
It's great. How are you doing there in Calgary?
Well, other than the weather, it's not bad. You know, it changes every 5 minutes here.
It's either too hot or too cold. That's all I remember.
Well, it's cold today.
Well, that's...
I'm originally from Manitoba, so it's much colder there.
Yeah, no kidding.
Listen, the reason I actually called, first of all, I want to tell you thank you for taking my call. It's,
my pleasure.
It's a pleasure to talk to you. I watched you all the way back to the screensaver days, and now that I've got you online, you know, I got you on multiple monitors here. But I'm having a problem. I'm setting up my own podcast. not to be competition, mind you.
I welcome it. I welcome it. The more the merrier, please.
But I am setting up my own podcast. So what I did was I invested into some new hardware. I bought the Firewire podcast studio from Behringer.
That's a neat system. They've got it all set up. You buy one package. It does a lot of what you would want to do. It's a mixer. It lets you record multi-track. And it's cheap, right? Relatively.
Yeah, it's very inexpensive. It was a little over $220 Canadian for me.
Does that include mics?
That included a C1 cardio mic.
Right.
It includes the mixer, all the cabling, the Firewire interface into the PC.
Well, that is a great
and I am using a PC. I'm not using a Mac. I've been a PC guy for years, and that's kind of what the show is going to all be about, is PCs and how you as an average user can make the most of the hardware you have.
Love that idea.
Now, I'm using a Canon ZR920. I haven't upgraded the camera, mind you, but it is a good little camera. Here's my problem. I downloaded the Ustream producer software, and I've got everything hooked up to it. Now, what's happening is the mic on the camera is being picked up into the system.
Right. Instead of your C1. Yeah, you want your mixer picked up.
Absolutely.
So that might be a problem because you have the Firewire edition of this. It may be that the Ustream producer doesn't see the Firewire input. I presume you've looked at producer, by the way, as far as I can tell, is just kind of a branded stripped-down version of Flash Media Encoder. And,
I would think so.
Yeah, and so I think, at least on Flash Media Encoder, and we use Producer, I just haven't played with it much, you can pull down what the audio source is, you can check an audio source, and same thing with a video source. You don't see that capability, or is it not shown?
I don't, no. Yeah. It's very limited into its menu selection for preferences.
You might want to take a look at Flash Media Encoder, which is free from Adobe and is also supported by Ustream. You'll have to have the Ustream server login and so forth, but you can get that information. And that will let you, at least what I would do, here's what I would do. I would download Flash Media Encoder, see if you can, in its drop-downs, choose the Firewire. I presume the camera is Firewire.
It is.
Yeah, choose the camera, Firewire camera, but audio from, maybe it's because it's both Firewire. I wonder if that's the problem.
Don't know. I know I had a real problem with the Behringer product on the 64-bit system that I have. I have an i7 sitting with a 64-bit system.
That's just a driver issue, and that's one of the problems with 64-bit Windows is not all manufacturers, and apparently not Behringer, have updated their drivers. They're very, very different drivers, the 32-bit versus the 64-bit.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So what I did was I ended up putting a 32-bit version of Windows 7 on another PC that I have here. I'm surrounded by PCs in my home. It drives my wife nuts.
Hey, look at me. I got 14 computers around here. That's why I'm not in the house. My wife wouldn't let me. You think my wife would let me do this?
Mine are all in the basement, so I don't have to bring them upstairs.
Very smart.
Except for hers. Hers is up in her own office.
I'm wondering if it's because it's Firewire, but you could easily test this using the Flash Media Encoder, which will also work with Ustream. I like the Ustream Producer. It makes it very simple, and there are some features to Producer. Ustream, we should tell folks, Ustream.tv is a video streaming site. It's free. It lets you do not just an audio podcast, but a video podcast, which you can record on Ustream. People can watch you live. They can watch after the fact. I mean, it's really a nice setup. And they do have this special software called Ustream Producer, which is, my understanding, a rebranded Flash Media Encoder.
Oh, it is? Okay.
I'm really pretty sure, yeah.
You could take it and use that also to upload to YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, the better way to do that would be to record it in higher quality.
Right.
Because the Flash Media Encoder is pre-compressing it.
Right.
It's an interesting question. I'm not sure why. This is a place where maybe going to Ustream's forums would, have other users might be able to help you with that. It might be because both the camera and the microphone are coming in as Firewire. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Jose B tells me that the Ustream Producer is actually Wirecast rebranded. Ah, that's interesting. I did not know that. Okay. So I'm not sure. I haven't tried this exact setup, and I'm not sure, but it's not an uncommon problem when you have both things coming in as Firewire that the software can't distinguish, oh, that channel of audio, not that channel.
Right.
That'd be my guess as to what's going on, is it's not giving you the chance to discriminate channels. The nice thing about this mixer, and that one of the reasons, I mean, for $299 list, This is a really nice package. And one of the things they're doing, they're giving you a 4-channel mixer, and each channel comes in as a separate channel over the FireWire, so you can mix it in software too. That's a really nice thing to have. But I'm not sure if you had the USB version of this podcast studio. Then I don't think you'd have the problems, because the camera would come in as FireWire. You could say use FireWire for the video and USB for the audio. I have a feeling the problem really is that the software, the Wirecast software that Ustream producer is using, can't distinguish multiple channels of audio. We're going to take a break, come back with more of your calls. Leo Laporte, the tech guy, 8888. Ask Leo. That's the phone number, 888-827-5536. I'm here to help. If you're having trouble with your computer or your home theater, I'm here to help if your cell phone ain't doing what it's supposed to do. I don't know who's going to help me when my stuff doesn't work, but maybe you can help me. I guess that's what we have the chat room for. That's a great place. It's my brains, externalized. You can get into our chat room just going to our website, techguylabs.com. There's a chat link right there. It'll take you to our chat room, irc.twit.tv. And there's usually about 500 or 600 people in there, sometimes as many as 1,000. Chatting away. It's friendly because we have great mods who keep it safe in there. And I encourage you to visit it. techguylabs.com. Click the chat link. There's also live video of the show always, and all the shows I do. We do shows on the TWiT network about 7 days a week now. All sorts of tech stuff. You'll find a link there for that and the podcast too. techguylabs.com. So Intel must have money burning a hole in its pocket. That's all I can think. Intel spends $7+ billion on an antivirus company, McAfee. Now, McAfee's one of the big two. I think Norton and McAfee are the two big ones, right? Or McAfee. I never know how to say that. McAfee, I guess. McAfee does $2 billion in sales every year, so spending $7.68 billion on a company that's making $2 billion a year. I guess there's some multiple there, of earnings. It makes sense. But you got to wonder, is there really a future for the antivirus industry? After all, Microsoft now gives away an antivirus for free. Windows Security Essentials, and encourages everybody to install it. McAfee and Symantec still make money, I'm sure, selling antiviruses to the big PC manufacturers like Dell and HP, because if you get a Dell or an HP or a Gateway or Lauded, almost always you get McAfee on there, right? You get 1 year or 6 months free, whatever. You get a trial, and then, of course, it says, give me your credit card if you want to stay safe, and most people do, and it renews automatically, and for the rest of your life, they get a little annuity from you every year. So I guess that's a good business, but you got to think that companies like Dell and HP are looking at Microsoft and saying, why are we bundling this paid solution when there's a free one? Well, actually, I know why, because they get a cut, don't they? Of course, that's why. But what is Intel thinking? I mean, is this a growth industry? Is this something that Intel says, boy, we're really missing out on the big antivirus boom? I always say $7+ billion. When you get numbers that big, the 0.68 doesn't seem so important until I really think about it, and I realize that 0.68 is $680 million. So it's $7,680 million. That little decimal is important when you get in the B's. That's a lot of money. An all-cash deal, too. This isn't stock. This isn't inflated Intel stock they're giving them. It's the biggest acquisition Intel's ever made. It's been around for 4 decades, and it's never bought anything this big. Intel's a hardware company. They sell chips. Chips for computers, chips for servers, chips, most recently, for mobile phones and mobile platforms, and I think they probably hope to sell chips for tablets. Why are they buying a software company? It's a huge deal. Now, you could say Intel, and this certainly isn't unheard of, might have just stumbled. I mean, we've seen a few strange acquisitions in the past. Time Warner, AOL. Never made a lot of sense. HP and Compaq, kind of a screwy deal. There were quite a few deals. Google's bought about 100 companies that it's never done anything with. So, Yahoo. Companies spend money. It's just not what you'd expect. They say that McAfee is going to help Intel improve the security of its chips. Maybe. The only thing I can think, Paul Alanini, the CEO of Intel, says, everywhere we sell a microprocessor, there's an opportunity for a security software sale to go with it. Wait a minute. Paul, I got to tell you something. When people buy a cell phone or a computer, I know you spend a lot of money on this Intel Inside thing. They don't think, oh, it's got Intel Inside. I'm going to go to Intel to get the security software. They either go to Best Buy or Costco or Sam's Club, or most likely they get it. Something that came on the computer. They get it from HP, Compaq, or Dell. Adelani says it's not just the opportunity to co-sell. It's the opportunity to deeply integrate into the architecture of our products. I certainly hope Intel doesn't plan to put McAfee antivirus into its chips. That would not be my favorite thing. McAfee, if you went to the stock market on Wednesday to buy stock in McAfee, was selling at $29.93 a share, a little under $30 a share. Intel's paying $48 a share. They're paying $18 a share, more than 50% more than the share was worth in the stock market to buy this company. Man, if I were an Intel board member or a stockholder, I'd be really questioning this purchase. That is bizarre. Just bizarre. Some say, I thought, maybe it's about portable security. I mean, I'll tell you what. I think you can pretty much safely say that the operating system companies, Microsoft, Apple, the Linux companies, pretty much locked down their systems. The security companies say that really all the new attacks aren't happening, well, some are, but more and more, they're not happening on the operating system. They're happening on programs you run on the operating system. And the brave new world, the real frontier, the place hackers really want to go is portable computing, because we're those of us who carry smartphones are carrying really computers in our pockets. Gigahertz processors, lots of RAM, applications. These computers are always connected, always on, and provide a really wonderful attack surface. They're easy to get to, and once you get in there, there's all sorts of fun things you can do. That's where the big battle's going to shape up, not on the desktop. It's going to shape up on the mobile phones. Maybe that's Intel's idea. McAfee does make a mobile phone product. Maybe that's where they're going. Very puzzling. So this morning I woke up, actually it was last night, and I use you all know about Twitter, and there's a lot of Twitter clones. There's one called Google Buzz. I really liked it when it came out last year. You may probably heard about it because there was a big brouhaha over privacy. They tied it to Google's Gmail product, and a lot of people said, wait a minute, you're exposing who my correspondents are. Google hung their head in shame, and about a week later fixed that, and I defended them. And I like Buzz. I think one of the reasons I like Buzz over Twitter, I'm always looking for a replacement for Twitter. Twitter's great. It's very easy to use. I have 222,000 people listening to whatever I say on Twitter. It's and people like Britney Spears have 5 million plus listeners. Actually, Lady Gaga's sometime this weekend going to eclipse, maybe she already has, eclipse Britney Spears as the #1 user on Twitter. Maybe that says something. I don't know. But Twitter is, I signed up for Twitter early on, I think December 2006. I've kind of quit Twitter and came back. I've always struggled with it because while it's very easy to use and very powerful, it also lacks the ability to have a conversation. You're really broadcasting on Twitter, and people can respond to you, but it's very difficult to have a back-and-forth conversation. It clutters your stream. It's hard to follow. It's not designed for that, and they've never added features. They added the @ sign, but they never really added features to enable conversations. So I have looked at other platforms, Pounce, Jaiku, and most recently Google Buzz, which added the ability to have a conversation over your initial post. So you'd write your 140 characters, had a great sandwich for lunch today, and then people could comment on that, and you could comment back on their comments. You could have a conversation, something a little more chewier, a little richer, something going on. I really like Buzz for that reason. And I used it exclusively. In fact, I started posting only to Buzz about 3 months ago. When I start a radio show or a podcast, I would post to Buzz and say, hey, I've started the podcast. If you've got anything to say, you can say it here, or you can watch us live. And then I had set it up so that Buzz automatically tweeted that, so I kind of still had that presence on Twitter. And I'd still post stuff on Twitter from time to time. But Buzz, I really liked Buzz. It was on my platform, on my phone. You know, it was easy to post to. I could post pictures. There was engagement. Every time I posted something, get dozens of comments. Well, I don't know if I did something or Buzz did something. I think Buzz did something. But August 6th, my last post, August 6th, everything I've posted since then, in the, 16 days since then, has disappeared on Buzz. I didn't even notice. I was typing it. I could see it in my personal stream. But I did notice. I thought, this is odd because nobody's commenting on anything I'm writing. And it's not getting over to Twitter. And I didn't put two and two together. I was busy. I was thinking about other things. Finally, last night, I kind of took a look and I realized nobody can. I am posting into the wilderness. It's like you were tweeting and nobody could see it. That's fine. That was a mistake. I'm sure that I think they've fixed it now. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. That's fine. These things happen. It's a computer. But the thing that shook me to my very roots, and the thing maybe we could talk about today is, I don't think anybody noticed. I didn't notice. I didn't even notice. And it made me wonder, what is all this stuff I've been typing out there? This stuff I've been putting on Twitter and Buzz and these others and Facebook. How important could it possibly be? How valuable could it possibly be if nobody noticed that I hadn't said anything in weeks? 8888 Ask Leo. I hope you're listening now. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. 8888 Ask Leo. That's my number if you have a question, a comment, a suggestion. What it made me think, when I posted to social media for 2 weeks and nobody saw it, and nobody mentioned it, including my friends, family, staff, and hundreds of thousands of followers. What it made me think is, what the heck? Have I been wasting my time? Sometimes I feel like things like Twitter and I guess Buzz too are just a bunch of people shouting in a room. It's like a party line where nobody's listening, everybody's talking. It's just a bunch of chatter. I've been one of the people who's really defended social media. I thought, oh, this is the future of the internet. This is the internet nervous system. This is us connecting, and we're going to make one giant hive mind with synapses buzzing. And if you want to know what's going on, you follow it on Twitter or Buzz. And now I'm starting to think maybe nobody's listening. Everybody's just talking. Thank goodness. I mean, I have a real platform. I do radio shows and podcasts, and I have millions of listeners there, and I think people are listening. But wouldn't it be a weird sensation if you were doing a radio show for like weeks, and it actually, this happened to me early in my career in broadcasting. This is what this reminds me of. Early in my career in broadcasting, when you first start out, you don't get the best jobs. You're begging, you're pounding the pavement. That's what I love about technology now, and podcasting and the internet means that anybody could do a radio show with your own laptop and the internet, and you could have a global audience. But in the back in the day when I was starting out 20, well, did I say 20? 34 years ago, you had to get a radio station to put you on the air, and I pounded the pavement, and I found actually finally that the cheesiest, and please forgive me, but the cheesiest little radio station I could find. I won't say where, but it was a very, very small radio station. And I thought, I can get on here, because I was getting no's everywhere. I can get on here. I did get on, and they gave me a show. You know what they gave me? They gave me midnight to 8 a.m. Sunday morning. That was my first real radio job, midnight to 8 a.m. Sunday morning. And I felt good because I got 1 hour out of that 8-hour shift. I was on the air. I had a microphone, and I had a turntable, and I played music. Yes, in those days, kids, the music was recorded on these pieces of plastic and you'd put a needle in it, and you'd turn it around, and it would make music. So, and I was happy. The rest of the time, the other 7 hours, I was playing back tapes, religious services, that kind of thing. It was Sunday morning. That's fine. I was on the air. I had a radio show. So, one night, it was a long, lonely shift. One night I got a little sleepy. I got an hour tape on. I thought, I'm just going to lie down on the floor in the studio and take a little nap, and I'll get up in 5 minutes. And I wake up to the sound you never want to hear, which is the tape. Now, yes, in those days we used tape going. The show had run out. I didn't know how long it had been off. We were off the air, dead air. coming out of that radio station, that big radio station with the millions of dollars of equipment, the big tower in the Bay, broadcasting to the entire Monterey Bay Area, and I was broadcasting dead air, the worst sin you can commit in radio, dead air. But you know what the epiphany was, the realization was? I looked up, the phones weren't ringing. Nobody even knew. Nobody cared. Nobody called the station to say, "Are you dead, Leo? Is there anyone there? We've had dead air." Even the boss, even the program, no one knew. That's when I realized, for the last year of my young life, I've been getting up at midnight, doing 8 hours of radio, and no one was listening. That's how it felt when I noticed that my Google buzzes and my tweets weren't going out, and no one said anything. It was that same feeling of no one's listening. So now it makes me think, and I think this is the lesson, this is the reason I bring this up, for all of us to really think about what our presence on the internet is. If you want to have a presence on the internet, and certainly if you're a business or you're trying to build your name or you're a broadcaster or you make videos, you want to have a presence. The question is, where are you putting your stuff? And are you owning it? And it really brings me back to something I've said for some time. You still need to have your own personal website. You still need to have a place where you know the posts are going out. There's a real scale, though, isn't there, of being completely public, posting only on Twitter, where they have everything you post is theirs. They own it. You don't have a record of it, and it's ephemera. It goes away after a day or two. Nobody sees it ever again. That's one side of the scale. The other side of the scale is your own personal website, where if anybody wants to communicate with you, they have to go there. And if they want to have a conversation, they have to have the conversation there. Now, both ends of it seem kind of wrong. It seems like there should be something in the middle where you have a place, a real website that's your own, not Facebook page, not a Twitter page, not a Google page, but your own site where you post stuff. But somehow it goes public and people can publicly comment on these other places. So it's kind of tied together. You participate in the commons where everybody else is, but you have a place that you can call your own. I think, and it pains me to say this, but I think in some ways that's kind of where Facebook has done it right, haven't they? You have a Facebook page. You have your friends. You have your wider circle of friends. Now with Facebook and the public settings, the everyone settings, you can even have a global set of friends. And what you put on your personal page can be seen by all of them. They can interact with you on their page, but what they say to you comes back to you. You can have a conversation. You can have your own space, but you can also have a public space. Now, I have other problems with the way Facebook's done this, and mostly just not letting people know or understand what they're doing. But actually, I think now I understand that's kind of where they're headed. There are ways to do that also with a blog, with the proper commenting system. I think you need to own your own website, don't you? Your own presence on the net, and then have public places. Leo Laporte, the tech guy, 8888 Ask Me. Let's talk about it. We were talking before the break with Linda in Corona. She's in charge of buying phones for the entire company. They're currently using Exchange. Are you using Windows Phone mobile?
No, right now they're not doing anything, getting any kind of email or anything on their phones.
This is, by the way, why a lot of companies go with BlackBerry. BlackBerry still is BlackBerry and Windows Mobile are the default for a lot of companies because, well, Windows Mobile supports Exchange out of the box. I mean, it's a Microsoft product. And BlackBerry could support Exchange, has encrypted email, and some people who really want to get committed to BlackBerry will even run the BlackBerry server itself. And great for email and all of that stuff. But I think you're right. I think the time has come where you can look at an iPhone or an Android phone and say this is a good alternative choice. These phones, because they have apps, are really hotly desired by your employees. They want to have the phone that does all those things they see on the TV ads.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So are you going to continue to run Exchange?
Well, it's the version that we're using is so old, and our server is so old.
Dump Exchange.
I know I need to do something, and I'm also kind of looking at this cloud.
Yes. I'll tell you what we do in my company. Exchange is really it, especially for big business, and especially if you have an IT team that knows how to run Exchange, or is willing to put up with the horrible experience that it is for the IT department to run Exchange, or you're using hosted Exchange. We use DNA Mail for our hosted Exchange. They do all the work, and this is the. But you do not want to run Exchange unless you've got somebody who really knows what they're doing. And my guy, my vice president of engineering, who ran an Exchange service, will not do it ever again. He says no. So we're using Google Apps. And any Android phone works great with Google Apps. You don't even need to use the premium Google Apps, frankly. I mean, Google Calendar can be shared. Everybody can log into a calendar. You can share your you can have your own personal calendar. This is what I do. I have my Leo calendar, but then I have a shared company calendar that is part of my Leo calendar, so I can see the company stuff. I have several, actually. I can have my own contacts, but we can also share company contacts. All of the stuff that you want to do, you can do with Android and Google. So if you're willing to move to the Googleverse, you're set. Now, probably if it's, how big is the company?
It's, we've only got about 13 users.
Yeah, that's the same size as mine. So it's a small business. Google Apps is a really great choice. We have, TWiT is the name of my company. So we have gmail.twit.tv. We have, calendar.twit.tv, and all of it's run by Google Apps. If you want to have the premier version, which has some additional features, it's $50 per person per year. You get 25 gigabytes of storage. I mean, you get a lot. You can use Google Docs, so you share documents. And you get your own domain name with your custom logo and everything. It really feels like it's a professional server, but you don't have, a business, but you don't have to run it. Google does all the work. And I trust Google in this regard. And it comes down to your website, too. So, as I said, mine is TWiT. So it's gmail.twit.tv. And it has its own logo. It really feels like you're in your company's server, but you're not. Google's running it for you.
Okay, and the reliability where they, does email process through pretty quickly?
Oh, yeah. Oh, Gmail's great. I bet you half your company has personal Gmail accounts already. So they're comfortable with it. The nice thing about an Android phone, you're talking about the Droid X or the Droid 2, you log into your Google account, the phone populates. Puts all your contacts immediately. Within 3 minutes, your phone is set up. It's got your calendar, your contacts. It's got everything. I love that.
And if you were sitting at a laptop, you'd pull up virtually the same thing? Exactly
the same thing. You can do it at your desktop. You can even have offline storage for it. So I think Google is a great choice for people who, you can make a case for Exchange and SharePoint and these really heavy-duty Microsoft products, especially if you're in a large company with an IT department. But if you're a 13-person company like yours, like mine, Google Apps is a great choice.
Great. Okay, thank you, Leo.
And for the salespeople who want keyboards, you get them a Droid 2 because then they got a physical keyboard. And for the people who just want a really great phone, I use the Droid X. Great big screen, really legible, really easy to use. And frankly, the on-screen keyboard to me is better than the physical one. So I like the Droid X. Either one is an excellent choice.
Great. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Linda. I'm glad you called. That's a great topic. Now, I'm sure there are people out there who are going to say to me, "Oh no, Leo, Microsoft has this new." Microsoft really is frankly coming back strong against Google. And they have this new, I think it's called BPOS, that Microsoft, they haven't really, it's called Business Productivity Online Services. And this is what Microsoft's pushing as kind of their alternative. Still runs on Exchange. It's $10 per user per month, the standard suite. It's a little more expensive than Google. But if you're a big company and you want things like SharePoint, Office Live Meeting, Office Communications Exchange, these are great solutions. And by the way, Android and iPhone all work fine with these. They both support Exchange. So you're not going to have to choose a Windows phone to use this stuff. I would be very interested. Windows Phone 7 is coming out next month or maybe October. It will integrate with this. It is going to be the ones what I've seen of it, and I haven't held one in my hands, but what I've seen of it, it looks to be pretty competitive with Android and iPhone. So if you don't want to leave the Microsoft universe, I think there's going to be a good choice. Microsoft's responding very, very strongly to the threat that Google and Apple are presenting. And this BPOS, which is unfortunately named, is, well, it is, isn't it? Is their future of Microsoft business, cloud business. service. And you can get hosted versions of this. You can host it yourself. I would go with a hosted solution. That's the cloud. That's where everybody's going. You don't want to have to run these servers all by your lonesome. 8888 Ask Leo's the number. We can talk about cell phones. I mentioned Scott Wilkinson has the day off, so no home theater call today, but he'll be back next week. And if you have home theater questions, I'll do my best to answer them too. 8888 Ask Leo. I'm Leo Laporte, the tech guy. I think you're going to like this. George, New Hampshire, Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Hi, George.
Hello, Bill.
Hello, George.
Okay.
Has winter come to New Hampshire yet?
What's that again?
Is it winter in New Hampshire yet?
No. It gets a little chilly at night. Other than that, it's fine. We're normally a Waltham resident. I have 3 questions for you.
Yes, sir.
The quick one is, it reminds me of the first time I was broadcasting, except I didn't have tape run out. I had a disc get stuck in a very bad place on a religious program.
Oh, no.
We heard Jesus Christ. You know,
Whoops.
the transcript disc got stuck.
Now, did you get calls, George?
No, I got fired.
Oh, well, somebody was listening, the program director.
Yeah. Okay, long story short.
You know, never go to, by the way, okay, now that you've started me, I got to say one more thing. I don't know why it is. When I do this show normally in my own studio, and I have a bathroom like 15 feet from me. But for some reason, when they build radio stations, and I use a lot of radio stations as I travel around, for some reason, I don't know why, they always have the bathroom not only a long way away, but through a locked door. And if you're an employee, you have a key, but if you're not an employee, inevitably, you're going to go through that door, it's going to close behind you, and you are locked out of the station.
You got it.
Have you ever had that happen to you, George?
No, but what happened to me was the time that I was on my way out to the bakery, the engineer that was on duty, as you know, in those days, you had to have a support engineer,
That's
was,
right.
should we say, a little on the hangover side. So he was found asleep.
Oh, no.
And I was running the board.
Oh,
I
dear.
had my, class 3. Okay, long story short, I have a Dell computer. We've had some issues with Dell, but they have stepped up to the plate.
Good.
They've honored everything. I defy the extra warranty, which is excellent service.
I think it's worth it with these companies, especially Dell, to get the gold service because, frankly, where they've cut, the reason the computers are so cheap now is they've cut support. But if you're willing to pay for it, they basically have unbundled it. If you're willing to pay for it, they still give good support, I think.
Yes, they do, except that when it comes to software. My issue is now, I tried loading down. They finally sent me the Windows Premium 7. What's the best way to reformat my drive? Should I reload all the Dell drivers in and put in the Windows XP, the Windows Vista, rather, and then reload a Windows 7? Or should I just go and format the drive completely?
Oh, yeah. The Windows 7 is very close to Vista, so you probably could upgrade in place. That's what you're asking. Should I do we call it a clean install or an upgrade in place? In general, if you have the option, even though Windows 7 and Vista are very similar, it's always better to do a clean install. Format the drive.
Okay.
Install the operating system. Go to Dell, get the Windows 7 drivers. If there's a difference, they'll have Windows 7 drivers and get those.
Yeah. Now, how do I start from scratch and format the drive so that it's completely wiped out? Because what's happening now, every time I try and install Windows 7, it goes and says I'm updating the existing files, and it comes back where it's...
There's a point in time where you can catch it. The installer has a partition manager built into it, which will allow you to delete the existing partitions and fully create new partitions, fully format the drive before, so it's fresh. It's in the installer, but you have to stop. You can't just kind of go, yes. There's a point where you can do a custom installation. It'll say, I see Windows, and I can't remember. Maybe somebody in the chat room remember what the keystroke is that says, no, wait a minute. Maybe it's F8 or something, but wait a minute. I don't want to upgrade an existing installation. Give me the partition manager. It will then show you how your drive is laid out, what partitions you've got. And here's a nice thing, and this is why I recommend people keep their data on a separate partition or a separate drive. If you've kept the Documents and Settings folder and all your data on a separate drive, you can only wipe out the Windows drive, and you won't have to restore all your data. Your data will stay safe.
Okay, I have some backup on my data, but we had a crash, and Dell did replace the drive. Now, the problem I have is that I use a screen reader, okay? Zoomtext is one I use, which is excellent. It magnifies the screen and also has speech output.
Right.
When I go to install Windows, I have no way of reading that foolish print. It is absolutely impossible, and my wife is not computer savvy.
You're right. They do not. That's a very good point. They do not make the install accessible to people with low vision or no vision. I think you got to get your wife or somebody just to sit next to you and read you the screen.
Okay. Yeah, because
that's terrible, isn't it? I never thought about that. You know, Windows, once it's installed, it's pretty good with accessibility. You can use Zoomtext, you can see stuff. But you're right, it doesn't do that until it's installed.
Now, the other dumb thing is, why the hell don't they make I shouldn't say hell, but anyway, why don't they make the default English instead of some other godforsaken language that you can't even understand what you're trying to read?
It's not English? What are you getting?
I think, I don't know, Spanish or Dutch or something like that.
Oh, I don't understand that because it's usually... I don't know why it's doing that. Maybe you have a different version.
Yeah, Dell sent me the upgrade.
And it's in Dutch. That's great. But you can change to English if you could figure out what menu item.
Yeah, we finally figured how to get there, but the problem I have right now is it's in the sharing mode. It's in the 32-bit/64-bit, and I have a 64-bit system.
Now, here's where you could get in trouble. A lot of people, in fact, almost all computers now being sold are sold with 64-bit Windows 7. And that's because Microsoft really wants to push people that way. The problem is that you might be a little ahead of the curve using 64-bit. Not all the hardware you have may have 64-bit drivers. Unless you're using more than 4 gigs of RAM, I have 8. Then you have to use 64-bit.
Yeah, I have 8 gigs.
Yeah, then you have to. In my opinion, the only reason to go 64 is to access more RAM.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Dell originally sent this thing as a 64-bit system.
Yeah, they did because it's got more than 4 gigs. See, 32-bit Windows only sees 4 gigs.
Yeah.
And some of that is actually reserved for the operating system and the video card, so you don't even get all 4 gigs in your free RAM. So that's why people move to 64. But 64 can cause headaches on its own just because of driver incompatibility.
I know that. Believe me, I know.
Yeah. Well, for instance, things like JAWS and other screen readers, sometimes they haven't updated them to 64-bit, and then your accessibility goes out the window. So eventually, everything will be 64-bit. I think within certainly by the end of the year, anybody who's going to upgrade their drivers will have upgraded their drivers because most people are using 64-bit Windows now.
If I want to totally format the hard drive, in other words, totally wipe it clean, what is the easiest way to do it? It's an OC drive. I know you're going after...
Here's what I recommend, and this is a good thing for anybody to have if you're going to give away a computer or you're going to give away a hard drive, and you really want to make sure that drive contains nothing.
How do I format it,
It's a free program. Google DBAN. That's short for Derek's Boot and Nuke. And it's a free program. You'll download it. You burn it to a CD, and then you can boot that CD on any machine. It'll run. Okay. It wipes the drive. It is clean as a whistle. You could give it to somebody. You could give it to the National Security Administration. You could give it to the CIA and say, see if you can find anything on here, and they can't.
Could you do me one favor, or if at all possible, put it on your website, or could somebody possibly email me the pointer for that?
James will put it on the website, techguylabs.com. This is episode 694. It'll say, there'll be a link on the left that says Sunday's show. It'll be right there. And James is going to put it there. It's Derek's Boot and Nuke, D-A-R-I-K. And just Google D-B-A-N. Google D-BAN, and it's very easy to find, and it's really great.
Now, the other question I have is that all the Windows drivers I have for the Vista, Dell says they should be automatically upgraded to Windows 7. Should I reinstall Vista and then reinstall Windows 7?
No. See, that's why I like to go to Windows 7 Clean. Now, if you only have an upgrade disk, you can do that, but it's really best to go to Windows 7 Clean, and there's a way to trick it to go to Windows 7 Clean. That's really the way to do it, and get the Windows 7 drivers if you can. They're absolutely right. What happens if you upgrade a Vista? The first thing you do is you go to Windows Update, you run Windows Update, and Microsoft will say, oh, you're running 7 now, and it will download a bunch of new drivers to you. But one thing, and it's a good point from PBLO in our chat room, is download the drivers before you reinstall. It's really nice to have those drivers on a CD or an external drive or somewhere you can access them so that you can get right to them after you do the install. Although, I have to say, Windows 7... it's very mature. It has drivers. If it's a Dell machine, the Windows 7 will have at least acceptable drivers for every bit of hardware on the Dell. So it'll run just fine without any special drivers. But then when you reboot and you run Windows Update, and you absolutely have to run Windows Update after you do a clean install of any version of Windows, and you keep running it until you get every critical update. You should, in the optional updates, you'll usually see some driver updates. Do all of those too. That way you'll have the latest Microsoft WHQL approved drivers for all of your Dell stuff. And because it's Dell, the world's largest PC manufacturer, more Windows run on Dell than any other computer. I guarantee you Windows 7 will have everything it needs for Dell. You don't have to go to the Dell site. It'll have everything it needs. I mean, by far, the majority of people running PCs are running Dells. They're still number one. And then HP, just close after. All right, D-Man. D-Man says, I don't have a Dell. Let me get, if you are doing a clean install of an operating system, most of the time, by the way, it's only geeks that do this. Most people, the way they upgrade you know how most people upgrade Windows? They buy a new computer. They don't upgrade. They don't install. It's probably a good thing to know. You've got those system recovery disks. Let's hope if you bought the computer, you even have a Windows install disk. That would be the best. I would do it every year. Back up your data, reinstall Windows from scratch, reinstall all your apps, restore your data, run Windows Update until it's all done. Everything will run better. Leo Laporte, the tech guy, talking about technology as we always do at this time. And I'm really pleased to welcome back a guy who was such a hit on the show when he was on a few weeks ago, talking about high dynamic range photography, or HDR photography. Trey Ratcliffe of StuckInCustoms.com. And welcome back, Trey.
Thanks, Leo. How are you?
Great. Nice to see you again. And one of the reasons I wanted to get you back is when you were on, you talked about the fact that you were doing a DVD on how to do HDR. You have a great free tutorial on your website already, StuckInCustoms.com, but now there's a full DVD for people. And I'm buying this, by the way, because I bought Photomatics, the program that you recommended, and I've made some really ugly HDR photos. And I'm ready for some instructions, so I'm going to get the DVD. StuckInCustoms.com, right?
That's right, StuckInCustoms.com, and you can find all about the DVD there. In fact, I wanted to give a coupon code to your fans and fans of Leo, if that's okay.
Please do. Are you kidding?
Sure. So if you want 20% off, just go type in Leo loves HDR.
Well, you're making some big assumptions there, aren't you? I do. I love HDR.
It's great stuff. It's about 6 hours of instruction, and basically I tell you how to take what comes out of Photomatics and all these other programs and then make it beautiful, because that's really Photomatics I see as sort of a first step to the final creation.
It's pretty automatic, but if you let it do just what it does, and I don't really understand tone mapping or anything, I just press a few buttons, you're going to get some, well, maybe not the best looking images ever. So here's a great HDR that you took on your site, StuckInCustoms.com, of me in the studio. That's an HDR, right?
Yeah, that's an HDR. And actually, those are the kind of HDRs I like, where people look at them and they're not sure if it's an HDR or not.
Yeah, see, my stuff you knew.
You got to watch out, because, once you cross the Rubicon into HDR trippy land, there's no return.
Yeah.
So you kind of want to stay in that hinterland in between fantasy and reality, to something that's beautiful and just you can't quite put your finger on what you love about it.
I actually, the one that I made, which was of a beautiful garden when we dropped my daughter off at college, I pushed it all the way. They have a setting called Painterly, and it made it look like you said, unreal.
So the problem with that HDR is I see these problems all the time.
Well, one is the sky, and I know you talked about you've got a halo
problem there.
Yeah, you got to fix the sky. You said that.
That's an issue. So the other thing that Photomatics does, and a lot of these algorithms do, is they overamp the green. So,
yeah. And since there was a lot of green in the picture, that really overamped.
Well, here's the counterintuitive thing, Leo, that what you're seeing in that photo is it's not too green, it's actually too yellow.
Oh.
And really, biomass is translucent, and you're getting a lot of the sunlight through there, which becomes yellow. If you take that into Photoshop and pull up hue saturation, and turn on the green, and you desaturate the green, you'll see hardly any change to your photo at all. But if you take it to the yellow and desaturate the yellow, then it will look a lot more natural.
I do like the effect. I mean, look, admittedly, it's kind of a freaky looking photo, but I love how it makes it look like
it's cool.
Like
it's very
fairyland.
cool,
yeah.
Especially when it's big, and your eye actually has to physically travel around the photo for you to appreciate it, because that's what your eye does on the scene.
Right.
If you try to take in all those light levels at once, your brain might reject it because it feels unrealistic.
So I wanted to ask you, so again, go to stuckincustoms.com. That's Trey's site. There are lots of great HDR photos. There is a free tutorial there. You can get an idea of how to take these images and create them. If I may thumbnail it, the idea is that your eye is capable of seeing a much broader range of light and dark than your camera is. So these HDR photos, you take a number of shots in a number of different exposures and then combine them using software so that the picture looks something more like what your eye would see than what your camera can see. The dark, you see more in the dark, more in the light.
Yeah, well said. You got it.
And Trey does such a good job with these. They I know that you aren't trying to make them look like HDR, but they always do look a little bit magical. My studio never looked quite so magical, I must say. So what I wanted to ask, anyway, go to Stuck in Customs. You can see these images. You can use this free tutorial, and if you decide to get the video, use the coupon code Leo Loves HDR. How much are they? Was it how much off?
Well, it's 20% off.
Wow,
and there's
that's
two
nice.
packages. There's a basic and a premium. So if you want all the goodies, get the premium. But if you're, on a budget and just want to get the basics, get the basic package. But you save 20% on both with your code
That's
either
nice.
way.
I'm going to do that right after I get off the air. So the question I wanted to ask, and one of the questions we kept getting after you were on the show a couple of weeks ago is, I want to do this. I have a point-and-shoot camera. Can I do this with my point-and-shoot camera? What cameras do you recommend if people want to do this?
Well, I have a list of recommendations on the page. There are hundreds of cameras that can do this, but rather than overwhelm people with the hundreds of combinations and permutations, I do have some basic suggestions. Now, if you already have a camera and don't want to buy a new one, which is usually the case, if your camera can do something called auto bracketing, then you're great. You're in the money. If it can't, if it can instead just shoot raw files, then you're also okay. Now, having said all that, if you're about to get a camera and you want to do this look, you can get into the game for less than $500. The low-end entry-level camera that I recommend is the Canon G11, which is strange because I'm really a Nikon shooter, but this is a great, very inexpensive way in. Another great low-end camera is the LX3, which will probably have a nice price drop soon because there's a new one of those coming out. So those are two great entry-level ones. And then I have upgrades from there if you're interested.
The Canon G11, these are point-and-shoots, and the Lumix from Panasonic, the Lumix LX3, also point-and-shoot. Both shoot RAW. So you said RAW is one way to do this. You don't even have to do bracketing if you can get a good RAW image.
That's right.
And if you have a camera that will do bracketing, that is take multiple exposures, half a stop down, just right, and half a stop up. Or, I was taking on my Panasonic GH1, I did, I think it was seven images, a third of a stop apart. Is that way too much?
Yes. You should.
That's when you get an image like that, Trey.
No. What you should try to do is step by one or step by two.
One or two stops apart, and how many images?
Ideally, you want to go from +2 to -2 with 3 total exposures. So if you can step by 2, you have a +2 exposure, which means it's very bright, but the shadows are well represented.
Yeah.
You want to have a 0, that's the normal exposure, and the -2, which is quite dark, but all those bright spots will have nice texture and realistic areas. And this is, of course, what you see with your eye when you're there.
So I was taking 7 images is way too many.
Well, your steps were a little too small.
Too small.
There's not that much difference, and it's too much process. It doesn't hurt to do all those extras. It really doesn't hurt. It's just extra processing time and just sort of a little bit of a waste.
Photomatics didn't complain, so I was okay.
No.
Trey Ratcliffe is such a great guy at explaining photography. I would love to do more with you, Trey. So let's get you back on the show on a semi-regular basis, talking about photography. talking about not just HDR but other things too. You're just one of my favorite photographers, and the picture you took of the front of the TWiT cottage, which is on the page, I don't think that's is that an HDR? I don't think so.
No, that's taken with a Nikon D3S. That's a 50mm prime lens.
It's beautiful.
And it's a 1.4 lens, but I shot that at f5.3 because if you were to shoot that at a lower number, like a 1.4, then the TWiT cottage sign that lists out your shows there, it would be unreadable because it'd be too blurry.
Right, but it's a little blurry, which gives it a nice focus on the flowers in the foreground. Yeah,
that's right. A little bit of depth, but not too much. You don't want to, make it too arty so that it loses all of its relevance.
That's what I did wrong. It was too arty. I'm too arty. Trey Ratcliffe is at stuckatcustoms.com. That's where you can see his pictures, his images. The tutorial is free on the website, but he also has a DVD now, and if you use the coupon code Leo Loves HDR, right? You'll get 20% off. And I don't get a cut of that. That's just Trey doing that out of the goodness of his heart. Trey, we'll have you back real soon.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for joining us. Trey Ratcliffe, everybody. What a nice guy. He's one of the nice guys in the business. That's what I like. Just gives stuff away, and is such a good photographer. Hey, if you are in photography, you know you have a lot of great pictures, and I hope you are backing them up. Photographers spend a lot of time thinking about backups. My friend Peter Krogh, in fact, wrote a whole book, the Digital Asset Management book, the DAM book, and created a whole website about backing up, about saving your images, about protecting your images. Could have saved him some time. Should have just told him about Carbonite.com, offer code Leo. Sergio in Los Angeles, Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Hi, Sergio.
Hi, Leo. I've been trying to upgrade my iPhone 3GS to the iOS 4 software.
Okay.
I have a lot of paid applications, photos and videos, but I keep on being stuck at the backup process, and so it's quite frustrating.
What happens? It just doesn't finish, or?
Hours, at times I leave it over.
Backup can take a long time. One of the problems we noticed with the 3GS is if there's a setting in there that says send information to Apple, and sometimes what that does is send a ton of data to Apple, and that can really slow the backup down. Have you ever had a completed good backup?
No, I haven't had
Never.
any success. Yes, and in fact I did try that. I went to turn off that automatic sending of the info to Apple, and it didn't make any difference.
It didn't speed it up.
Right.
Do you have? How big is your iPhone?
And my iPhone is a 32 gig, and I've probably only 2.6 gig of it.
Oh, that's interesting. Hold on, Sergio. I'd like to talk some more about this in a second. We'll take a break. Come back with more. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. 8888. Ask Leo. That's the phone number if you want to call in. It's kind of the waning hours of the show. I'll be back next week, though. We'll do this all over again. So just jot the number down. Put it on a Post-it note right next to your passwords right there on the monitor, and you can call me next time. Let's see. We were talking to Sergio. He has a 3GS, which he cannot, for the life of him, get upgraded because it won't back up. Right, Sergio?
That's right.
That is just weird. Now, is there anything on that iPhone that you are worried about losing? I mean, you got all the apps in iTunes. You got all your data in iTunes. Is there any reason, now think hard, that you would be unwilling to erase this iPhone? For instance, are there pictures and movies on there that you don't have copies of?
Yes, and in fact, what I did was I just, I'm using a PC, and I just transferred it into another folder on my PC. I didn't even use iTunes for that. So, I can probably just delete those photos, but I also have paid applications. And
now, don't have to worry about that, because if you erase your phone, and this is what I'm going to recommend, is you do a full restore.
Right.
And you go back to the Apple store and say, "Hey, I'm going to download this $5 application." You'll press the button, $5. It'll say down. It'll say buy. Don't worry. You say buy, and then it'll say, "Oh, you already bought this. It's free."
Oh, okay. So even with a new operating system,
don't worry about that. The iTunes store keeps track of what you've bought and will not charge you again.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
In fact, I was thinking of just doing a restore, except that. I was just worried about the paid application more than anything else.
No, I wouldn't worry about that. And I think you do need, if you've tried everything else, you probably do need to do a restore. It worries me that you don't have a good backup of the phone. I think we should, make sure that if there's pictures and stuff on there, that you get those off of the phone. Whether I don't know what do people use on I know on a Mac you'll use iPhoto to offload the pictures and video on the phone. What do you use on a PC to offload the pictures?
You know, when you plug your iPhone on the PC, there's two windows that pop up. One is for the iTunes, and the other one is, it just tells you whether you want to explore the content.
Okay, so it lets you see the contents and you can copy them that way.
That's right.
That's great. That's actually better than having iPhoto do it.
Now, Leo, how do I back up contacts then on PC?
Well, of course, if you've been syncing all along with iTunes, they should match. What do you store your contacts in? Outlook?
I haven't really had a successful sync on the iTunes.
So you've been putting contacts in manually into the phone?
That's right.
Oh. In future, what I would do is use Google. Google, if you have a Gmail account, there's a contacts manager there. Put the contacts in there. You don't ever have to sync them. You just set up Google in your iPhone. You use the Exchange entry, by the way, to do that. And you set up Google in there. Google explains how to do it in the Gmail how-to. And from then on, it does over-the-air synchronizing. So if you enter something on the phone, it synchronizes it up to Google Contacts. And if you put something in Google Contacts, it goes down. And you can use Google has a sync to Outlook if you were using Outlook, so you can keep that in sync as well. But that's the better way to do it. Now, I don't know if you've never been able to synchronize, you probably would lose those contacts that you entered manually when you do a restore.
Oh yeah, I'm worried about that. I've never had a successful sync. I left it overnight twice, and when I wake up in the morning, like 75.
The chat room is telling me that there is a program. This is hearsay. I've never used it from digidna.com. It's called Back Off. And it says it speeds up iPhone or iPod Touch sync by turning off the automatic backup in iTunes. It would then let you sync. You wouldn't have I don't know if you'd have a backup or not. I hope this isn't expensive because it's a pretty simple. It looks like maybe it's free. Yeah, I guess it is. It's a pretty Windows or Mac. It's called Back Off from digidna, digidna.com. Maybe that would solve the problem.
Okay, I'll give that a try, but I think I'm going to just go ahead and restore it.
Ultimately, I think that's going to solve that's going to allow you to upgrade. Now, if you have an older iPhone, 3GS is fine, but if you have a 3G or an even older iPhone, do not upgrade to iPhone OS 4. It really slows your system down. Apple says they're going to fix this. They know what's wrong. But I feel bad there's a lot of iPhone 3G users who've upgraded to iOS 4 who are just saying, I can barely use my phone. You're fine on the 3GS. You're only 1 year behind, and that's fast enough to handle for.
That's great, Leo. Hey, Leo, thanks a lot. And my wife is a big fan. Her name is Rosalind, and she's waving at me and saying...
Hi, Rosalind. Thanks, Sergio. Take care.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Let's see if we can get one more in before the show winds its way down. Mark in Cotati, California. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Hi, Mark.
Hi, how are you?
Just up the road a piece. I'm down here in Petaluma. You got to come over and say hi.
Sure.
What can I do for you?
I was wondering if you knew about the Boom. It's called, they're Novato-based. They used to be, or still are, Yumi Voice.
You mean you're talking about the cell phone headset, the Boom?
That, but also they claim that their voice recognition.
I have not used their voice recognition. That's interesting. Voice recognition is traditionally something very hard to do. Nuance really has the market locked with its Dragon Naturally Speaking. It's been around for years.
They say it works with the Dragon Dictate.
I see. So they're making a boom mic for Dragon. I get it. I was going to say if they had software, I'd be skeptical, but they're using the Dragon software. Yeah, I've used the Boom. I actually had a Boom and I stepped on it. But so I squished it. They're a little delicate. But yeah, my experience was it's very good. One of the things I like about the Boom, I hate the fact that Bluetooth headsets are way back at your ear. The Boom puts the mic right in front of your mouth, and I have to think that's a better way to do it.
Right. Exactly, and I just wanted your take on this future internet restructuring that they're working with Stanford, MIT.
Internet
and whether or not,
yeah, that's interesting because the internet was not designed for some of the things we're doing, particularly audio and video. They've got a high-speed internet. It's also more secure. The internet was never designed with security in mind, and that's chiefly the biggest problem right now, is that we're trying to layer security on top of something that wasn't designed to be secure.
Right, and my question is, are most of our PCs going to be antiquated when that is in place?
No. They wouldn't dare do that. That's not the point. In fact, we're talking about IPv6, the new IP solution, which will solve the fact that we're running out of numbers. All of this will be compatible with existing setups. Leo Laporte, the tech guy, have a great geek week. We'll see you next time.